They summoned me to conference room 3B, an unusual choice for HR, not their usual glass box where reputations quietly bleed out. This room was colder, emptier, surgical. I already knew what was waiting behind the door. I knew before I stepped inside, before I saw her sitting there with that blade-sharp posture, her expression carved from ice. She didn't waste time. No hello, no polite facade. Just a folder pushed across the table like a battlefield truce. "Sign it," she said, her voice honed to a cruel elegance, as if she practiced those 2 words for weeks. Inside the folder, resignation papers, divorce filings, a prepackaged silence she thought I would swallow without resistance. "Do this quietly," she added, tapping a single manicured nail on the signature line, "or I'll make sure you never work in the city again." I took the pen. I nodded. I signed. She smiled, but she never noticed the alteration. One word, buried in the legalese, so precise and deliberate it would take weeks before her legal team caught it, if ever. One word changed everything. She thought she'd won. That smile of hers, glassy, triumphant, stayed with me as I stood. "Thank you," I said, and I meant it, because she'd just destroyed herself. The first crack had surfaced a month earlier. Nothing loud, nothing cinematic. Just misplaced toothbrush, wrong color, wrong brand, tucked behind the sink in the apartment she kept for convenience. I didn't ask about it. Questions have a habit of dragging truth into the light, and I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Then came the late meetings, the silence phone she forgot to silence, the name Elliot repeating itself through hotel invoices paid with her mother's card. She'd once called me too ambitious, said I'd be swallowed whole by the family machine. What she didn't realize was that I'd already stepped outside of it. I had stopped trying to belong. I couldn't sleep, not because I missed her, but because between 2 and 4 a.m., the world goes still and clarity sharpens like a blade. I smiled when she was around, just enough to keep her comfortable. She never suspected a thing. I started small. A paternity test with a son she swore was mine. It came back with a simple, sterile verdict, 0% probability. I didn't cry. I made a copy, encrypted it, and labeled it Exhibit A. Then came the phone records. Voicemails. One especially careless whisper. "She's asleep. Be here in 10. I miss your skin." I followed the money next. Her mother had rerouted my patent, my project, into her own name, tucked under a shell corporation. I traced it all, documented every shift, every digital fingerprint, emails, screenshots, transfer receipts, theft dressed in corporate polish. And I waited. When she finally struck, calling me into that icy conference room, armed with threats in legal ink, I let her think I'd surrendered. The resignation I signed was no resignation at all. The clauses I rewrote turned it into something else entirely. Clause 7, admission of coercion. Clause 9, reinstatement of intellectual property to its original owner, me. Clause 10, legal responsibility in the event of fraud. All of it signed through DocuSign, time-stamped, legally binding, witnessed, ironclad. The next morning, they tried to bury me officially. HR called me in. My wife and her mother were already seated, draped in black like mourners at a funeral they thought they orchestrated. I handed Miss Keller a folder with one word on the cover, violation. Inside, the DNA results, the infidelity evidence, voice recordings, fraudulent shared documents, and a detailed breakdown of her mother's scheme. For 20 minutes, no one said a word. My wife's fingers trembled. Her mother's face, once unbreakable, began to unravel in silent horror. "You knew?" my wife whispered, as if the air itself had turned on her. I finally looked her in the eye. "No," I said evenly. "I calculated." The realization hit her mother harder. The document she'd smugly demanded I sign, her weapon, was now her confession, her downfall. I leaned forward just enough for her to hear. "You once told me that real power moves in silence." I said, "Consider this my thesis." Then I stood. I didn't wait for questions. Didn't collect my things. I walked out through the lobby and into the morning light with no intention of ever looking back. Apologies would follow, of course. Tear-streaked voicemails. Empty explanations, legal panic. But I was already gone. They had handed me everything I needed. The board would read my final report. I never wanted revenge, only the truth and the silence it demands. They gave me both. Some people burn bridges to win. I simply waited long enough for them to collapse beneath their own weight, and when they did, I was already holding the last piece of the game. They never knew I was playing. The checkmate,